Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, we're going to jump into a really fast-moving area in global nutrition. We're talking about the plant protein ingredient market. We've been looking at a market briefing from Cognitive Market Research, pulling out the key stuff for you. And our mission today is basically to unpack how much this market is changing, see the big numbers, the trends, and why it actually matters to you, whether just shopping, maybe investing, or curious about where food's headed.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is just the sheer scale of this change. I mean, it's not some small niche trend anymore, right? This is a big economic shift. It's changing farming, it's changing what's on your plate. It's quite fundamental, actually. So maybe let's start with the big picture. The global market was valued around $11.5 billion back in 2021. But here's where it gets interesting. It's expected to jump to over $15 billion by 2025. And looking out further, say to 2033, we're projecting it to hit $26.7 billion. That's more than double the 2021 figure. That works out to a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR of about 7.3%, just under 7.27% to be precise.
Wow, okay. More than doubling in what, just over a decade. So what does that actually mean for you listening? Well, it signals this huge wave of expansion, right? Lots of opportunity. Think about your grocery store aisles or restaurant menus, even the kinds of jobs popping up in food. It's all being touched by this. So understanding these numbers gives you a bit of an edge, helps you see where things are going. And to really get that, we should probably look at where the growth is hottest, starting with the big player. Yeah, if we're looking for sort of the main hub of this whole plant protein thing, it seems like North America is really it. They're not just leading. They seem to be pushing innovation too, shaping things globally.
That's exactly right. North America definitely holds the largest share. And a big driver is this shift in how consumers think. It's not just strict vegans anymore. It's heavily influenced by the flexitarian idea. People wanting cleaner labels, fewer ingredients they don't recognize, plus health goals, sustainability. It all feeds in. So revenue-wise, North America was about $4.6 billion in 2021, and that's projected to shoot up past $10.3 billion by 2033. Again, more than doubling.
That is a serious jump. Can you maybe
Whoa.
break that down a bit? Like which countries are really pushing that number in North America?
Sure. The U.S. is, well, clearly out front. It's expected to grow from roughly $3.7 billion in 2021 to over $8.1 billion by 2033. Just think about that shift. Plant-based used to be, health food stores only. Now you see oat milk everywhere, plant-based nuggets in schools. Canada is also showing really strong growth. It's set to more than double, too, from around $500 million in 2021 to over $1.2 billion by 2033. And Mexico is looking to grow from about $390 million to over $920 million in that same time frame. So yeah, these aren't small tweaks. It's a real fundamental shift in what people are eating and expecting.
Okay, so from North America's boom, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe. Over there, sustainability and health seem to be driving things pretty hard too, right? Reshaping diets at a similar pace.
Absolutely. Europe is definitely a key player in this expansion. A lot of it is driven by growing awareness about sustainable diets and also a real demand for allergen-free options. Plant proteins fit perfectly there. So the region's market was around $3.3 billion in 2021, and that's estimated to climb past $7.4 billion by 2033. So again, more than doubling.
Another big leap. Are there specific countries in Europe that stand out? Or maybe like a particular segment that's really dynamic?
Yeah, definitely. Germany looks set to more than double its market from about $517 million in 2021 to $1.1 billion by 2033. France is similar, also more than doubling, going from around $445 million to over $1 billion. But what's quite interesting is the rest of Europe category. That segment is expected to grow from roughly $800 million in 2021 to over $2 billion by 2033. That tells us there's really strong, maybe even accelerating demand right across Central and Eastern Europe. It's broadening out.
Okay, fascinating. Now let's shift focus again. Let's look at a region that's just synonymous with fast change generally, Asia Pacific. How's that region playing into the plant protein market?
Oh, Asia Pacific is a huge engine for growth here. A lot of it seems tied to rapid urbanization and just the growing popularity of plant-based diets in general. When cities grow fast, like in China and India, you often see more demand for convenient, stable protein sources. And plant-based options are really stepping into that space. So the region was worth about $2.1 billion in 2021, and the forecast sees that going past $5.3 billion by 2033. Again, you guessed it, more than doubling.
That's a powerful trend indeed. Which countries are the main growth engines within Asia-Pacific? It's such a vast area.
Well, China's projected to more than double its market size, from about $630 million in 2021 to over $1.5 billion by 2033. India is also on a really strong path. It's expected to nearly triple, actually, from around $300 million to over $810 million in that period. And we're also seeing places like Singapore, Southeast Asia generally, and the rest of APAC showing really impressive growth rates, CGRs. That rest of APAC's chunk is set to almost triple, too, from about $250 million to nearly $720 million by 2033. It really underlines how fast diets are changing across very different Asian cultures. People are embracing new proteins.
Right. So beyond these kind of established players, we're seeing momentum elsewhere too. What about emerging markets? Let's talk South America. Seems like it's gaining speed.
Yeah, South America is definitely making its presence felt. Revenues there are projected to rise from about $770 million in 2021 onto nearly $2 billion by 2033. So yes, more than doubling again. Brazil is the biggest piece of that puzzle. It's set to grow from around $234 million to $575 million. And Argentina is following, also looking to more than double, expanding from roughly $106 million to about $280 million by 2033. It does make you wonder, how quickly local food industries there will adapt to this growing demand.
Good point. And then there's the Middle East, another region going through lots of change, showing its own kind of adoption patterns.
The Middle East market is also projected to basically double, growing from about $450 million in 2021 to over $900 million by 2033. Key countries there include Saudi Arabia and the UAE. The UAE in particular is set to more than double its market, from around $44 million in 2021 to nearly $100 million by 2033. And that really reflects a definite increase in health focus and a growing taste for more premium plant-based products. It lines up with how consumer tastes are evolving there.
Okay, so we've toured the globe, but we've kind of saved maybe the most surprising growth story for last. Africa. It's actually emerging as the fastest growing region in this whole market.
You are absolutely right. Africa's growth numbers are, frankly, pretty striking. Market revenues there are expected to more than triple, jumping from about $230 million in 2021 to over $750 million, $753 million by 2033. And that gives it the highest KGR of all regions, just over 11%. 11.03%.
Wow, triple. Which countries are leading that charge?
Well, Nigeria is projected to more than triple, going from about $50 million to $160 million. South Africa is also set to more than triple, growing from around $80 million to over $255 million by 2033. And what's really interesting here is it's not just about adopting Western trends. You see local innovators using indigenous crops, things like fonio or moringa perhaps, creating new culturally fitting plant protein sources, building the market from within, you could say.
So think about that for a second, listening in. That incredible acceleration across Africa. It's not just about catching a global wave. It's local innovation meeting this huge new demand. It really is a global shift happening everywhere.
Exactly. And if we try to pull it all together, why this matters to you, we can clearly see these big forces at play. There's this rising global focus on health. That's undeniable. There's the demand for sustainable protein options, which is just growing and growing. And then there's constant innovation in food tech, making these plant-based options tastier, cheaper, more available than ever. These aren't small trends. They're reshaping whole industries.
Totally agree. And this isn't just like interesting data points. It's practical insight. If you're thinking about investments, these numbers clearly point towards opportunities in sustainable ag tech, maybe, or companies working on new ways to get protein from plants. Career-wise, fields like food science, sustainable supply chains, even plant-based cooking, they're obviously taking off. So hopefully this deep dive gives you a clearer picture of where food is headed and maybe how you fit into that future. And that wraps up our deep dive for today, a quick tour through a really dynamic market.
Yeah, definitely a lot happening. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Given all this growth we've talked about, this big global shift towards plant-based, how do you think this transformation might really change our food systems, maybe even our daily meals over the next 10 years or so? It's definitely something to chew on, pardon the pun, as you think about your own choices. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that's, well, it's rapidly changing our grocery aisles and, frankly, a lot more. We're talking about the global plant protein ingredient market. You shared some really great insights from cognitive market research, and our mission here is basically to dig out the most important nuggets.
Yep.
What's really driving this huge shift in how people are eating?
Absolutely. And what's fascinating, I think, is how many different threads are woven together here.
Hmm.
We're talking health, ethics, technology breakthroughs, complex global supply chains. It's a really dynamic space right now.
Yeah, dynamic is the word. What really jumped out looking at the research was this powerful consumer push for clean label and sustainable nutrition. It seems like a lot of people are really scrutinizing those ingredient lists now.
Oh, definitely. Almost like auditing their food, you could say.
Huh.
They're actively searching for plant-based options they trust. And that
Oh.
translates directly into huge demand for things like pea protein, soy, rice protein, even hemp.
Right. The ones often seen as, non-GMO or allergen-free.
Exactly. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, it's clearly about lifestyle changes too. We're seeing this growing adoption globally. Vegan, vegetarian, flexitarian diets. People are motivated by health, sure, but also environmental concerns, ethical reasons.
And that directly fuels demand for the alternatives, like
Yeah.
plant-based meats and dairy.
Precisely. And we can't forget the technology side. It's constantly improving. Things like extraction methods, getting the protein purer, fermentation too, enhancing flavor, and texturization, which is huge for mimicking traditional meat textures.
Making it feel right in the mouth.
Yeah, the mouthfeel. These advances are making a massive difference in taste, texture, and nutritional function. It means these ingredients can go into way more products now. High-protein snacks, those next-gen plant-based meats.
Okay, so lots of innovation, lots of demand, but every market has its challenges, right? What are some of the speed bumps here?
That's a really important question. A primary restraint the research highlights is, well, the nutritional gap between some plant proteins and animal proteins, that is.
Meaning like missing amino acids?
Yeah, exactly. Some plant sources might lack certain essential amino acids, or they might have lower bioavailability, which basically means your body can't absorb and use all the nutrients quite as effectively.
So that could limit how useful they are on their own. For things like muscle building, maybe?
Potentially, yes.
Right.
Unless they're carefully blending different plant proteins or fortified with those missing nutrients.
Got it. And that probably ties into the taste and texture challenges, too.
It does. Formulating something that actually tastes good and feels right can be tricky. I think many of us remember some early plant-based products that tasted a bit earthy or maybe beany.
Definitely. Yeah.
So achieving that desirable flavor and that satisfying mouthfeel often means using special masking agents or specific processing techniques.
Okay, so nutritional gaps, flavor hurdles. What else?
Well, there's the bigger picture issue. Price volatility and supply chain disruptions. Remember, these are crop-derived ingredients.
Right. So they're vulnerable to wetter farming risks.
Exactly. Agricultural risks, climate variability, even global trade issues can really impact supply and therefore price.
So despite these challenges, it sounds like the innovation isn't stopping. The insights you shared point to some really exciting emerging trends, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. The market is incredibly innovative. For instance, we're seeing a real rise in blended proteins, multi-source formulations.
Like mixing pea and rice protein? Or soy and chickpea?
Precisely. These blends offer more balanced amino acid profiles, hitting more of those nutritional needs. And they often result in better taste and texture, too. So they're getting a lot of traction in sports nutrition, clinical products, but also just mainstream foods.
Interesting. And are these proteins showing up in unexpected places, too?
They really are. What's quite compelling is seeing plant proteins move beyond just human food and drinks. We're talking pet nutrition, for example, animal feed. Even cosmetics are starting to use plant-derived peptides.
Wow, cosmetics. Why there?
Well, for their perceived sustainability, digestibility in feed, and maybe certain functional properties in cosmetics like skin benefits, it really shows how versatile these ingredients are becoming. And one more thing, there's a growing focus on local and regional sourcing.
Moving away from just the big global commodities.
Sort of. Exploring alternatives like lupin, fava bean, sunflower protein. It helps reduce some of those supply chain risks we talked about and supports, cleaner, more region-specific supply chains.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. What's the main takeaway from this deep dive? We've seen these powerful consumer shifts, the tech breakthroughs, this drive for sustainability. It's all pushing the plant protein market forward, right? Even while it's figuring out how to deal with these nutritional and supply chain issues.
I think the big takeaway really is that this isn't just some fleeting trend. It feels much more like a foundational shift in how we think about source and consume protein. And the constant innovation is just making these plant-based options better, more appealing, and usable in so many different ways.
Definitely feels foundational. Okay, here's a final thought for you, our listener, to ponder. As these plant proteins keep evolving, getting better, becoming more common, how might their widespread adoption really reshape things? Not just our diets, but maybe global agriculture, even economies, in ways we perhaps can't fully predict yet.